On this edition of MSha News, you're going to hear from a bulldozer operator who found himself sucked into a void on a feeder draw hole of a raw coal stockpile. Because of the safety features his company installed after a previous accident, Roger is alive to tell us his story.
The piles were way up big, and was probably somewhere in the area of about 15 to 20 foot from the top of the truck down. Where the trucks were coming in and dumping, and the feeders weren't opening. One of them opened, number 3 feeder opened. So I was basically taking the coal from what the trucks were dumping and pushing it to the number 3 feeder, and more or less trying to keep the truck drivers happy, keep them moving, and keep a little bit of coal coming to the plant. And I'd clean as much as I could away from the wall, and then I'd go back at digging at the number 4 feeder, trying to open it up. Really, there was more coal coming in than I could get rid of in one feeder, so it piled up on me pretty good. So I started cutting towards, cutting the pile away from the wall again towards the number 3 feeder, because it was getting in my way of digging out the number 4, and the number 4 feeder had rat holed out, and I just had pushed up to the number 3 feeder and went to reverse, and when I started to move backwards, a big cloud of dust started rolling, and the dozer turned to the side, went into the feeder on its side. I guess the blade or whatever, something turned to let the dozer turn back around to where it was just sitting on its tail like that. And after the dust cleared, I had about maybe 2 foot of window that I could still see out of. And when I looked out, it was like I was in a jug. Everything was just over top of the dozer, and I was looking out through a hole. So I just stayed where I was at. I started hollering at the control room operator and told him to shut the feeders off on the FM radio. I grabbed hold of the seat and pulled it forward as far as I could get it. I turned around backwards, put my back up against the window, and pulled the pin on the self-rescuer door and dropped it out and got it. I'd shut the dozer off, other than I left the air conditioning fan running. So if there was any air around the machine, I could draw off of it rather than just worrying about the rescuer. And basically, just sit there. I think they said I was in there for like an hour and 45 minutes.
I was in my office and was informed by the plant foreman. We immediately got in a pickup truck and came to the stockpile on top where we could see what was going on. We got to the top and looked down. We could see the void in the pile, and we could see the blade of the dozer about 5 or 6 feet below the surface of the coal. We were able to communicate with the operator. We could talk to him, and he told us he was okay. He could see light, and we told him what we were going to do. We called a loadout and got 2 more dozers up to the pile, and we immediately began moving the coal away from him. And when we started moving the coal away, the pile started breaking, and it covered the dozer at that time to where he couldn't see. So he had his self-rescuer out and had it ready.
Nothing really fell in until I could feel the other dozer. He'd started coming in on the pile, and when he did it, everything jarred loose, and finally it covered the dozer up. Almost positive that I could keep what was going to come through that window out. And if I stayed where I was at, that the cab of the dozer wasn't going to fill up with coal. When I first went in, I still had about that much window. And as this thing's progressed, the window was getting slowly but surely covered up, and then finally it was the window covered up, and then I felt the pile give, and you feel the dozer move. It was just kind of a thud, and then I knew that the rest of the pile would come in on top of it.
With communication, I could talk to Roger all the time while I was climbing on the pile. The time I got to the where he was at to the top. Then I was above him, so I could look down and see the blade and part of the cab. And then I talked to him, and I started digging him out. The man has a lot of time to think when he's actually that close to death.
I just stayed real calm and tried to control myself enough to where I didn't get real excited, and thought about my kids and my wife. And the glass was already breaking in, it was crushing through the doors, and they basically just had to finish breaking the glass out. I just told Mr. Bubba, just get me out of here. And he grabbed me by the shoulders and pulled me through the door.
Coal stockpiles probably is the most dangerous situation that we have in the coal industry today. We did a lot of things after the first accident, which was in the clean coal pile. We created some more ideas by having the trucks to stop dumping, concentrating on the one feeder that was giving us a problem.
When the man was rescued, we came back to the stockpiles and we started evaluating. And at that time, we put balls directly above the feeders to mark exactly where the feeder was, so when the stockpile would be high, that we would know underneath, because when the piles get high, you would have no way to really tell exactly where it's at, but the ball hanging directly over helps it. We also installed lights of telling us which feeder was running. That would give all outside personnel that would be on the property would not be familiar with this operation. They would know which feeders are running, so that they would know which ones to stay away from. Also, we went inside our tunnels at the feeder where the draw holes inside. We placed switches that would automatically cut the feeder off if the coal would quit feeding down. If it would go empty, that would be plugged off, so we would know it was blocked. It would automatically shut the feeder off. We put cameras on the stockpile so we could monitor the dozers. We have 3 different radio communications in the dozer, so that the man, if one radio would fail or antenna was knocked off, he would still have radio communication with someone, because he has with the supervisor, he has with other mobile equipment, and he has with the control room. So that gives him the communication to be able to get a hold of someone. Each dozer on the job, we have a self-rescuer that is located in a compartment directly above the operator's head, so that he doesn't have to look for it. Pulls it down, there's a flashlight, and the self-rescuer is located in a compartment where it's easy access to the operator of the equipment. It's part of the operator's job each day when he checks his equipment out. He has a pre-op checklist. He also checks to make sure that this hasn't been tampered with, hasn't been opened, hasn't been used, so that way he knows that it's in good shape. He has a pin flashlight kept in there so that he'll have light in case of darkness. Some of the operators even go as far enough to go ahead and even store extra sets of batteries for the flashlight to have it. This is in each piece of equipment that we have to assure that the operator will have this self-rescuer to be able to use.
We added extra glass into the dozer. We got a special glass that's made bigger than the opening that's supposed to be. It won't cave in, but you can kick it out if you're fouled in the dozer.
In the event that you have stockpiles get large, you have weather changes, you have dozers working, and you're not running a pile, but you have to push the coal, then you are going to get feeders that will be plugged up, and you have to go back and open them. But the main concern is to be sure that we're safe when we do it, and have every possible means of making sure that we don't get someone hurt or get someone in a feeder.
You get into a situation like that, you kind of look at, what's going to help me survive longer. If staying calm is going to conserve the air that's in the cab, stay calm.
If you're on that stockpile and you see you're going down a hole, sit tight. Absolutely do not get out of that dozer. Don't even attempt it, because if you try to get out of that thing and get behind it or under it, or coal falls on you, there's no change for you.
Stay in the dozer, because you come out, you may go through the feeder. You may get under the dozer. We don't know how to dig for you. If you're out of the cab, we don't know how to shove or push forward to try to get you out. Stay in the dozer. I believe you stay in it, you'll stay alive.
When we have this problem on the stockpile and we know the feeder's plugged, we're very, very much leaning toward the remote control dozer to open that hole up with not having a human in it. Because it will happen, and it'll happen again. I know it will. Somewhere in the country, somebody will get in a coal pile with a piece of equipment.
In the last 10 years, there have been 4 fatalities involving bulldozers falling into surge piles. Some of these fatalities could have been prevented if the safety ideas presented in this video were followed. Charts can be used to indicate the stockpiled material's angle of draw and to suggest the safest working distance from the draw hole. Remember, the higher the surge pile, the larger the hidden void can be. Report unsafe and hazardous working conditions and share safe working ideas with your supervisor and coworkers to help eliminate surge pile fatalities. Additional surge pile safety information is available on MSHA's webpage.